Hello, and thanks again for joining us for another Fathom Live, a live stream show dedicated to giving you tips and insights from experts in and around the real estate industry. I am your host, Jeff Sturt. So glad to be with you here today. And this is our second in June, so I can't say a happy June to you, but happy June anyways. We've made it halfway through the month, which is something to be said for in 2020 anyways. We have a great show for you today. It's a little bit different. If you saw kind of our little teaser this morning, we have with us John Davison. We're going to bring him on in just a minute. And John's just going to be talking about real estate kind of from a different perspective. Not so much business tools and that kind of thing, but something I think that'll be very valuable for you today. As always, start commenting on Facebook and YouTube. That will ensure that you're already entered into the drawing for the 4 different packages that we have. There's a photo listing package, yard sign package, Go Social lead package, as well as an on-target transaction. You can win one of those 4 prizes just by commenting. If you do ask a question that's then used in the show, if I make reference to it, we'll enter you 5 times into that drawing. And the same thing if you just go ahead and share the show right now, at least on Facebook. If you share it on Facebook, we'll count you 5 times in that drawing, giving you a little extra chances to win something. So very good. We are grateful to be partnered with Go Social Agent. Go Social Agent offers affordable and effective social media marketing solutions to help you grow your business. That includes helping you get your account set up and looking nice, providing posts. If you're like me, struggling to keep content in front of people, they'll just do it for you. And it's relevant stuff to real estate. They also offer agent-branded articles, so when people visit the website that they've clicked on, they see your face, buyer and seller handbooks, Facebook ad campaigns, and more. So head over to GoSocialAgent.com to learn more. And if you're a Fathom agent, you get some of this stuff for free, which is kind of cool. If you haven't hit the notification bell on YouTube, I encourage you to do it. That way, when we go live and you have the opportunity to participate with the show, you can see that notification come through on your phone or computer or whatever device you're on. And also, you can check out our previous episodes. We've got some really fantastic, amazing guests, and you can see that at fathomcareers.com/live. All right, enough of all that kind of stuff. By the way, my name is not John Davidson. That just happens to be up there right now. And our guest, to be even clearer, is John Davison, not Davidson. So we're off to a great start. John, so glad to have you on the show today. So just a little bit about you. You grew up enjoying baseball and in the process of things got to meet one of your heroes.
And I would always get to the ballpark an hour and a half, 2 hours before the game, go down towards the field and get a chance to meet the players, get autographed baseballs, and just talk baseball with guys. And Ozzie Smith was there that day, not in the starting lineup, so he was spending a lot of time with the fans because it was his farewell tour. And I got a chance to meet him and chat with him a little bit, which was pretty cool.
Very cool. Hey, sorry everybody about the sound. I think John's mic was muted there for a moment, so got that working. If you can hear us, both of us, let us know in the comments so we don't have a show just between the two of us. Let's just jump right into things here. Maybe just really quickly, how did you get into real estate in the first place, and when and how? Excuse me.
Okay, so back in 2006, I got my license. I was living in Florida. I was married, had a young daughter at the time, 5 years old. And we had moved from Jersey, sold a restaurant, and moved to Florida. And I had tried my hand at restaurant management a little bit, but just wasn't cut out to work for other people. So the entrepreneurial blood ran thick for me.
Right.
And I went and took a 2-week intensive pre-licensing course, got my real estate license in Florida, where in 2006, when I got involved in it, you could, if you had a pulse, you could sell a house. And everybody was
that was a
doing,
good time to be in real estate. Yeah, yeah.
oh, it was great. Everybody that was bagging groceries was becoming a realtor. Everybody was making money. Everybody was getting a house because everybody was 100% financed on homes that were not worth what they paid, which we saw the results of a few years later. But
Right.
I got my license, and shortly after I did was when the market in Florida had crashed. And I rode it out for a couple of years till 2008. And we decided as a family to move. 75% of the listings in the Orlando Association at the time we left were either short sales or foreclosures.
Wow.
So it was dire situation down in Florida at the time. Things weren't happening. Properties weren't moving. And I had an encounter with a friend of mine at a restaurant, a woman who was a client of mine. I had worked at the restaurant as a waiter. I was working 2 jobs, and she was going in for cancer treatment. And this was the last time that I saw her, and I knew her name. Her name was Melissa. I never knew her last name. And the last time I met her, for some reason, as I ran her credit card and she paid her bill, I just happened to look at the credit card and notice her last name was Raleigh. And I went home that night, talked to my wife, and I said, this is going to sound crazy, but I know we're thinking about moving. We don't want to go back to New Jersey or New York. I said, what about trying North Carolina? And we basically contacted 3 real estate agents. And here's a little fun fact for realtors. Three realtors we contacted, only one responded and sent me a relocation kit.
Okay, we could just close the show right there. That is a lesson. I don't know. Have we mentioned this on the show before? I think we have a few times. Pick up the phone, respond. Okay, continue.
Simply by responding, we contacted him. We came up here. My at the time wife went to a job seminar. She's a teacher, and David and I toted around Raleigh for a while and Cary, and he ended up selling us a house. We moved here. He sold my parents a house. They moved here 2 years later, and I ended up actually working with David at Coldwell Banker. It was my first job in real estate here when I got to North Carolina, and did tip number 2 for new agents that don't know an area or don't know a lot about real estate. Get with a mentor or somebody that can teach you, because David took me under his wing and taught me a lot for 2 years.
Yeah, and I want to ask you more about the mentorship thing later,
Yep.
but already, okay. Yeah, very good. So
Behind
you is something that is, there you go, UB4ME Foundation.
Right.
I want to hear your story. I want our audience to, I've heard your story. I want our audience to hear your story about how that came about. But maybe just talk about the foundation to begin with, and when you started it and what it does.
Foundation was started this year in January, and I do a lot of work through my church with missions and outreach. So I'm constantly in contact with civic and religious organizations that have volunteers. And I went through an encounter that I'll talk about in a little bit, and decided that I wanted to create a nonprofit organization that would support and promote other nonprofit organizations in the community. So these are your relatively small, mostly unknown, not household names, nonprofit organizations that are doing great work in the community. Everything from mental health to special needs children to grief and the elderly. I mean, it crosses, every line. And I decided I want to create a foundation that supports those organizations, both financially and then by being a broker of different sorts, not a real estate broker, but a broker that can connect nonprofit and religious organizations that have volunteers. So the hands and the feet, connect them with those nonprofits to help at all their events whenever they need those hands and those feet to make things happen. So it's twofold with UB4ME. We want to help them with the hands and feet, and then we want to provide them with financial assistance as well, which is why I formed the UB4ME Realty group. if you will.
So the foundation is essentially funded by, I mean, like at least basically funded by the real estate business that you do with your team.
Right. So real estate companies can't be nonprofit organizations themselves in North Carolina.
Right.
So what we do is that little bubble with the real estate team, the realty company, is outside the big bubble, which is the foundation.
Right.
And every sale that we have, so if it's my sale, it's 100% of what I would earn, or that portion that comes to the UB4ME Realty outside of what the agents make on their split, all of that goes directly to the nonprofit organizations that we are promoting and sponsoring at the appointment of the buyers and the sellers. Because the goal is to have buyers and sellers have an actual impact on their communities and create an awareness to them of who's working in these nonprofits in their community. So we wanted to try to, weave everybody into the fabric of the community in that respect.
So your real estate company does not pay you a paycheck, essentially. I mean, it pays the foundation the proceeds, including everything that you sell, any split that you take from your team members, and then so I'm following this, the people that are selling their house and paying your agent's commission, they have a say in where that money goes into the community there.
Right, and if they have a cause that they're passionate about, we're always looking to add companies to the that we can sponsor, and add organizations that might have volunteers that are looking to get involved in the community. So, yeah, that's been the goal of the organization for the last 6 months.
So I'm sure if I was thinking it, probably most everybody else was thinking it. How do you make an income? Because that doesn't pay the bills, obviously. It pays the UB4ME bills.
Well, what the audience doesn't know is that I live with Jeff. So I moved in with Jeff and his family.
If you speak up a little bit, you can hear me through the walls here. Right. No, I'm in Texas. He's in North.
That's a great question. As a matter of fact, when this concept came to mind, that hadn't really crossed my mind until the first person I talked to brought it to my attention. And honestly, Jeff, I've been blessed. I have some opportunities at times both to preach and to work with youth ministries to do retreats and things. So I make a little bit of supplemental income that way, not a lot, but primarily through investment properties. I look to fix and flip properties. I started doing that about 6-7 years ago. I have some hard money folks behind me that have funded me. And not that the market is hot for that now as it was 6 or 7 years ago, but opportunities, I'm just blessed.
Yeah.
The opportunities always seem to come along that just sustain me, and I live within my means.
Very cool.
Yeah, it all works out.
Very, very cool. Oh, no, that's awesome. So now I kind of want to talk about your story, if you don't mind.
Sure.
If you do mind, this is going to be a very short show. But my understanding is, okay, so you started your real estate career in 2006, but charity and this whole mindset of what you're doing was not really on your radar at that point. So what happened between 2006 and 2020 that got you to where you are now doing this?
Okay. I was a self-proclaimed person of no faith for most of my life. So faith in my religion wasn't a part of my life until I was about 40 years old. When I got into real estate in Florida, I went kicking and screaming to an event at my church. My wife at the time brought me to an event at my church. And through this event, I had an opportunity to witness people who had a lot of hardships in their life, but overcame those hardships through their faith. And that allowed me to make a direct connection with the people that were right there in front of me. Because for me, I need to see things. I need to talk to people. I need to feed from the relationship. And through those relationships, I started to put some credence into this concept of faith. And it completely changed my life. About 4 years later, my wife and I moved to North Carolina. I approached her one night and said, "Who are we?" Because we had been married 13 years at the time. And we had some very deep, meaningful conversation that probably should have happened every step of the way for 13 years. Things were not meant to be, and we separated at the time. We had two children, two daughters. One was 9, one was 3. And thank God that literally that I had my faith, because at least at that point, I wasn't going at it alone. The probably the first real event that impacted this journey for the last 13 years happened in 2011. I was right after the separation. I was depressed. I was in a dark place. I couldn't sleep. I would drive around Raleigh, Cary, just try to find a place to eat, somewhere to go to just clear my mind. So Waffle House was always good for that. So interesting characters come into Waffle House.
Yeah, yeah. You might die from the food, but it's a great place if you need to eat in the middle of the night.
That's right, and be around all kinds of people.
Yeah.
And I was driving on the Beltline, which is like a highway around Raleigh, one night. Probably the lowest point I was at, and I just had a feeling come over me that said, all the depression, all the hopelessness, it can all go away. All you need to do is turn the wheel of the truck and hit the next overpass, and it all goes away. And I'm not one that's prone to thoughts like that.
Mm-hmm.
And right away I said, God, this isn't right. I don't want to die. Not here, not now. And the thought came over me again. And I looked up. I was crying. I couldn't even see straight at the time. And I just remember looking up and saying, please, please help me. And I'm going to turn my phone for just a minute. I want to show you a picture. This was a picture that I saw. You can see that.
Awesome.
Those are my girls. I had that picture up above my visor in my truck. And it's funny because God speaks to us all in a very unique way, in a language only we can understand. And in that moment, I saw that picture. And instead of driving into the next overpass, I actually pulled in underneath of it. And it was in that moment that I realized I have so much to live for. And if not for me, for them, for these two people that didn't ask to be brought into this world, they're my responsibility. And like I said, God knows us so well. And he knows, you talk to me about responsibility and commitment, and that's going to strike a nerve. And I made a vow in that moment. I said, I'm trying to do this, still trying to do this on my own. I look to God, I turn to God, but I'm not fully committed. And I surrendered. That night on the Beltline, I just surrendered. And I said, God, you are the one who's in command. I am going to look to you to reflect you in everything I do. And by being able to reflect him and move with him, I know that wherever I go, whatever happens to me, I'm going to be all right. And that was 9 years ago. Wow. And I drove home that night and started to realize how many people were in my life, some for a short amount of time, some still there, that were helping me to bridge my life from that desolation to wherever I was meant to go. And I had no idea where I was set to go. I mean, from the first 6 years of my career in real estate, I mean, I wanted to be in the top 10. I wanted to be a top producer, a mastermind, whatever nonsense, titles that people want to give themselves, rock star. I wanted all that too. And I just started to realize that was shallow. That wasn't filling me, wasn't filling my soul. Because in that moment, I had that stuff, and I still found myself on the belt line that night in that state of mind, feeling like I was a failure as a husband, a failure as a father. And
I don't want to interrupt you too much, but
no, go ahead.
But this isn't the first kind of conversation I've had with agents, even in our company, that sounds very similar, and similar experiences. As far as your sort of state of mind and heart leading up to that, hindsight's 20/20, and you can look back and say, like, wow, what was I thinking? Or, there was definitely this going on. What would you say was kind of that mindset that was so corruptive, that would lead you? I mean, because it's not the real estate,
right?
I mean, you could point to, like, oh, I've got too much business, or not enough business, or whatever. But
right.
But what would you say that was, just as I'm thinking about other agents that might be hearing this?
Yeah, man. Because I'm human, and I bought into tied my sense of self-worth in with materialism. It's not about the number of commas in our bank account, how big our house is, but I didn't realize that at the time. I mean, I had bought into that. The thing that really made me really realize it, a few years after that, I was making my way through. I had been homeless for 3 months. Shortly after that, I lost my first apartment. Never missed the child support payment, but again, there's that that commitment. But I found myself homeless for 3 months, but not by any stretch the worst days of my life. As a matter of fact, when you're laying in the back of your car in the McDonald's parking lot, nestled next to a dumpster, so nobody will call the cops on you, because you're sleeping in your car.
Yeah.
Showering at the YMCA on a free trial membership. And I'll tell you, if you want to be humbled, go shower at the YMCA at like 6:30 in the morning. Most of the men are over 70. So it's a real glimpse into the future, when you're 46 years old. So, but I was doing my laundry at the laundromat, after I would get off work at night at the restaurant. But I went through a lot of those days early in real estate here in North Carolina. I was just trying to find myself. And even then, when I got into real estate here, I had that survival mentality. I wanted to succeed because I needed to survive. And I was really grappling with trying to follow God and understand faith and keep my head above water, because I was a survivalist at that point. And I was not part of a church family, never had been. And that was the missing element that changed 4 years ago for me. 4 years ago, I found a church in Chapel Hill, Mount Carmel Baptist Church, and I just connected with these people in a way that was so affirming to me. And they saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. And I found myself jumping in, cooking dinners, teaching youth, jumping in on every project that was going on. And something just woke up in me, and that service side came out. And it was right about at that time when somebody at the church said, you should go into ministry. And I thought, well, I'm going to go where God leads me.
Sure.
But school would be a good way for me to get that educational background, because I had never even cracked the Bible before I went to divinity school. And 3 years ago, I started at divinity school, and I, in that moment, said to myself, all right, God, you want me out of real estate? I'll drop my whole thing right now. I'll walk away and I'll go to ministry. And it didn't happen. And I said, if you want me to stay in real estate and this ministry thing is, just a fad, just you let me know, and I'll follow where you lead me. And like God does most of the time, he said nothing and he did nothing, because sometimes in his silence is when he screams the loudest at us. And I just had to go through that journey he had me on in the moment, because it wasn't time for a decision to be made. And I did encounter that sort of life-changing moment right after I started in divinity school. Some clients of mine that I knew through the Miracle League of the Triangle, which is a baseball league for kids with disabilities, I coached their son in the league, and I got a text message on a Saturday morning, and it just said, "John, my daughter killed herself on Wednesday.
Oh my goodness.
And the service is tomorrow." And I have a daughter who was about a year older than this girl was at the time.
Wow.
And I took her, we went to the service, and I saw a chapel packed to the rafters with family, friends, neighbors, people in suits, people with purple hair and piercings and tattoos. I mean, it was a cross-section of society in that chapel that day. And I looked around and I said to my daughter, mental illness is a terrible, terrible thing. And if you ever feel that way, because my daughter struggles with depression and anxiety, I said, take a look around. I said, this is how many people, and probably more, love this girl and might not ever have known she was struggling, but would have and could have been there maybe had she reached out. So it's just more people love us than we realize. And I went through the receiving line after the service, and I had never seen shock before up close. And the girl's mother just looked at me and said, "You have to sell my house. I don't want to live there. We can't live there anymore."
Oh man.
And immediately I felt something just didn't feel right. And I said, I want to help, because there was that part that said serve.
Yeah.
But then I said, but I don't want to get paid to do it.
Sure.
And that thought just rested with me. And about 3 months later, after they settled some things and the family was grieving and mourning, which they're still doing to this day, obviously, we sat down and we put the house on the market. And as we were going through the listing, I said to them, I don't want to get paid to do this. And they said, but you need to. And I said, why don't we split the difference? You can pay me, but we're going to donate the money to charity. Where would you want to donate it? And they said, well, let's give it to the Miracle League, because we love the league. You love the league. It's a common cause.
Right. You're both connected there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, lo and behold, in a market where houses sell so fast, this one sat. And I mean, I'll tell you, Jeff, I was praying on it. Every other listing, don't sell. Just make this one. God, please help me. Help me sell this one house. Please, I want to help these people move on. But again, on his timetable, in his time, not ours. And it sat for a year. My longest listing in my life, it sat for a year. And we finally got it under contract this past fall and went to the closing in December of 2019. And I got out of the closing, sat down in my car, and I just took a look at the check, the commission check. And I just broke down. I mean, I just lost it. And I thought, we need to do something more than just donate this. Like, it just didn't feel like that was enough. And I said, what if we split this thing up? Give it to the Miracle League, but we split it up into scholarships for families in the Miracle League to apply for a scholarship, and they can use it to help put their kids, through whatever school, private school they're in, wherever they're paying a tuition. But we'll make the scholarships in the name of the daughter, the young lady that had passed away. And I thought, that feels right, and there was a calm feeling, and then there was a tug. And I thought, well, this is it. We're done. And, God just said, no, we're not done. Because this doesn't have to be a one-time thing. This can be an every time thing. And from that, the UB4ME Foundation concept came about. I started to put all the pieces together, looked at all the relationships I had in my life through ministry, through my church, where I'm not a minister, but I'm super involved with leadership in the church, and I've been blessed to be given a lot of responsibility there. And I leaned into that responsibility and those connections, and came up with this idea for UB4ME, and then decided we'll financially fund it through a real estate company called UB4ME Realty, and got so excited about all this. And I had a logo, and then the first person I shared it with just doused my excitement by saying, well, how are you going to make a living? And I thought, okay, a foundation doesn't need a leader who's going to miss big chunks of important information, like how's he going to put a roof over his head and his kids. But I've been, like I said, I've been blessed. I mean, there's been times in the last 4 years where going to school took time away from real estate. I was working 50, 60 hours in real estate. I mean, really, it's been about 10 or 12 hours a week for the last 4 years. And just at every turn, I've been blessed, been able to, sustain myself, keep a roof over my head. Am I making what I used to make? No, I'm not making $150,000 a year. Probably making, a third to a half of that. But I pay my bills, I take care of my kids. And the thing is, Jeff, I take that time and I put it back into service, because that's my calling. We talk about our calling in life, our vocation in life, and then there's our job in life. And I just, like I said, I've been blessed and led to understand that my calling and my vocation in life is not real estate. It's not to do this full time. It's a part of the equation, and I just, cannot take an ounce of credit for this concept and this idea, because this is only God can say, I'm going to let you stay in real estate, and I'm going to let you weave ministry into that and combine the two. We're going to combine real estate and ministry, which is like oil and water. Like, you just don't see this happen every day.
Sure.
And it wasn't enough to just be a volunteer. So, the foundation came about, and then COVID-19 hit, and I thought we need to take a step back. A lot of the grassroots marketing that we wanted to do was going to get us out into the community, which obviously couldn't happen.
Right.
But again, it gave me a chance to pause and a chance to say, I can't do UB4ME Realty as a standalone real estate company, because I'm going to get too caught up in the back office work. I'm going to get too caught up in lead generation for my agents. I'm going to be an administrator of a real estate company. And that's ultimately not where I want to spend my time, or where my gifts are best used. And I started to look for real estate companies that I could hang my shingle with. Most of them got discounted immediately, because the commission splits would have further reduced what my agents would have been able to make on the team. And I didn't want to see agents making 50 or 60%. So I came across Fathom through an agent with Fathom, and did a little research into your founder, who, seems to be an okay guy, I guess. Yeah, I know. You're stuck with him because he's family. I'm here voluntarily. No, but it's really, really important. I tell all agents this when they're starting out. They say, where should I hang my license? It isn't about the uniform you wear. Okay, there's competent and incompetent, good and bad, in everywhere you go. Look at your core values, and then go find an organization, whether it's real estate or in the public sector. Find an organization who has the core values that resonate with you and align with yours. Because if you do that, you're going to be speaking the same language. And Fathom was that company, and it again happened to work out on the financial side, that
Sure.
the agents that work with me can benefit, and the foundation can get the maximum amount of money from each transaction to go to those charities.
So I want to talk, and by the way, thank you very much for sharing the story. And I think there's, there's principles you can talk about all day, but it's a lot more meaningful when it's connected to reality.
Yeah.
But just looking at your 2006 self, and I would dare say among a viewing audience, and maybe people that'll watch this later, that there are people that are probably closer to the 2006 self that you had been, and all of us, none of us are completely where we want to be. But what would you go back and tell him, the 2006 John Davison, if you had the chance?
If I had the chance. Wow, good question. I would tell him, first I would tell him, hold on. Okay, hang in there.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna have some dark days ahead, but hang in there and trust. If somebody said to me, what's your definition of success?
Yeah.
And I said, success is, for me, it's not about the product. It's not about the end result. Success for me is about the process. If everything I do, every action I take, every word I speak, if I'm cognizant of the fact that I'm trying to be a reflection of God, love your neighbor, just that simple command, to love your neighbor as you love yourself. I think a lot of people need to really ask themselves, can I do that? Because I couldn't love my neighbor like I loved myself in the past, because I didn't love myself very much. When I took a good hard look at myself in the mirror, I realized there's a lot of brokenness here. There's a lot of stuff that I'm avoiding. Work was always my vice. And I would tell that 2006 self, try to recognize your vice, because you're overworking yourself and you're doing it in the name of, the more I make, the more I can save, or the more I can give to charity. Or I didn't see the selfishness of, hey, I'm a realtor because I want to help people. Horse hockey. You're not in this to help people. Nobody listening to this does this just to help people. If you did, then I would say, join UB4ME and give 100% of what you make to charity. But the harsh reality of our lives is, when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we have to look at ourselves and really see the brokenness and ask ourselves, where can I change? And change for me started to happen. And it really struck me. And again, I take no credit for any of this. This was happenstance and the intervention of God into my life. But my daughter, as I said, she's now 19, was at her therapist at the time. She struggled with middle school and high school. And she was a, 8th grader at the time. And I stepped into the session at the end and said, how's she doing? And and I said to the therapist, I said, I'm trying to relate to this young lady, and I just can't. I'm desperately trying to relate to my daughter, and I feel like I can't. And we were two souls, kindred souls, that tried to relate to each other. And the therapist said, Hannah, what's important to you? Dad, what's important to you? And we stated ourselves as we see ourselves. And then she said, Hannah, describe your father. And she had so many great things to say, and I can't remember any of them except one. When she said, Dad works hard. His job is the most important thing to him. And I'll tell you what, Jeff, it stopped me in my tracks. And I had to take the pride and the ego and the self out of the equation and leave it out in the hall and just say, okay, I'm bearing my soul here. How do I communicate with my daughter? And what I needed to do was not see my kids or my life always through my lens, which was to be a good provider. That's why I work so many hours. That's why I work so hard. But to see it,
Right.
life through her lens, which was Dad's most important thing in his life is work. And I realized in that moment that we are blessed and provided for. I don't need that 10 extra hours, that one extra client. It would be nice, but if I could spend those 10 hours, let's say, over here volunteering somewhere, running a grief outreach group, working with kids with special needs, collecting food and clothing on a Saturday morning for the needy in the community. Now that's helping other people. And that is a decision that I personally made to change my life. And again, none of this, I don't want anybody listening to this to think you need to do this, you need to subscribe to this formula. Not at all.
Sure.
What I will tell you is this: who I was for 40 years is different than who I was for the next 9, and vastly different than who I've been for the last 4. Now, I've never personally had a baby, but in if you look at things in trimesters,
if you're just tuning in,
yeah.
you might need to rewind and
right. Yeah,
yeah.
I look at my life in those 3 segments, and it's just that middle segment was where I started to change, and I started to realize through other people, see things in myself. And then my family says to me now, they say, you're so different. You used to be shy and self-conscious, and now you say what you think, and sometimes that doesn't go over so well, and I have to monitor myself, but it's always from the heart. And they say to me, you've changed into who you are. And I said, right, because who I was for 40 years was who I thought I needed to be. It was who I was trying to be.
So, kind of going back, and then I want to tie some things together here, and we probably better wrap it up. But the one thing that you said that I thought was to me one of the most meaningful things is the way we see ourselves, and the narrative that we tell ourselves about why we do what we do is quite often a shroud for what we really want, over really what we really want. I do this because I love to help people, but yet I work like a madman, or I ignore my family, or I'm obsessed with more business, or some financial goal, or life stage, or title, or whatever it is. And I just found that really powerful, and that kind of concept of looking in the mirror, and having maybe those hard conversations with your spouse or a friend or kids or something, just to say, am I fooling myself? And so,
I think, well, especially in our business, I tell people this, all the time, and this always gets me in trouble in those Facebook real estate groups. Everybody with a real estate license, we are dispensable. We are disposable. There is nothing we're doing that if we're not here, somebody else will not pick up the ball and do. Some may not do it as well. Some may do it better. But that's just your job. And do it well. Don't get me wrong. When I mentor other agents, it's all about becoming absolutely an expert at what you do and investing your time to be the most competent person you can, because you owe that to your clients. You owe it to yourself. But outside of that, understand that real estate's just a job, and ask yourself, what's my calling? And I would challenge everybody listening today to ask yourself, what's your calling? Go do a Myers-Briggs test. There's so many of them out there that you can do that'll start to dial you into where your tendencies are, and where your passions are, and where your gifts are and your talents are. And find time to explore those gifts and talents, and don't ignore them, and lean into them. Not saying change careers. You can still be a realtor, but challenge yourself to say, maybe I can set some more time aside to lean into those things I'm really passionate about. And I'll tell you what, Jeff, I work with people all the time, and it's not about how many things you're involved in. It's really caring about the ones you are involved in. And I've got people that I work with in the community, at my church, some of the most gifted people in certain areas. And I'm smart enough at this point in life at 53 to know what I'm good at And when I go to somebody else who's a lot better at it than I am,
Hmm.
and bringing them into the fold. And one of those things I like to do is challenge people, like I said, to find out what that calling is in life. Because when you start to realize that you're excited to wake up every day and go do something that really makes a difference, it wasn't until I got involved in a lot of these volunteer activities that I started to see the impact I was making with people. And that's a blessing from the people that affirmed me and moved me. I'm just a vessel. You're just a vessel. What we do with those vessels, that's huge. Because I'll tell you what, there's nobody in real estate at the end of the line when we're up, up in front of the church and somebody's going to do a eulogy. Nobody ever leads off a eulogy and says, he or she was the best realtor. I remember when they sold me a house. It isn't about, that's just your professional
Sure.
resume. Go build your personal resume. Find the things you're passionate about, whether it's your family or a cause or both, and lean into them, because that's where you're going to find out who you really were meant to be.
Very good.
So,
I have other questions I could ask you, but we probably better
okay.
finish up.
Okay.
But I hope for those watching that you picked up a thing or two there about sort of the underlying thing behind your profession and behind what you do, and really asking those tough questions. It just reminded me, my wife and I had a conversation the other night, and it's just kind of one of those, I would say rare conversations, but one of those kind of like, let's just hit the pause button, just kind of step back and look at our life. Are we doing the right thing?
Right.
Kind of thing. And it's really uncomfortable to do that, but it causes you to really think through why you're doing what you're doing. And for us, it didn't mean like a big life change. It just mean kind of realigning our thinking about what we're doing. And
Right.
one of the things that you said too, like real estate agents have a unique profession. It's because everything that you make is dependent on the hours and the effort and the training and all that kind of stuff you put in. Whereas a lot of other professions, you punch a clock and you get a salary
Right.
check, and so your identity isn't quite as tied to have the tendency to be tied to what you're doing. So I think it's really important for any independent business person, business owner to really think about these things, but especially as agents, because there is a pretty hefty culture of climb that ladder, get to that
Right.
next income bracket or status, like you said, the accolades
Yeah.
and titles, which
Oh,
they'll come as
it's
they need
funny.
to.
I
Yeah.
know you. I know you thought we might run out or not have enough time. I told you. I told you I can talk. But
Uh,
one thing, and I'll
okay, I'll give you the
leave it
last word.
off at this. I preached a youth retreat one time, and one of the nights in the retreat, I brought up a 50-pound dumbbell and had it on the stage. And I said, I need volunteers. And I picked the strongest kid in the audience and brought him up. And I said, lift the dumbbell and hold it with one hand. And he got it off the ground, but it dropped right down. And then I called somebody else up and somebody else, and I kept preaching to him. And by the time we were done, there were 8 people holding the dumbbell or holding each other's arms up. And I said, guys, look at that dumbbell. That's your pain. Those are your troubles and your woes. That's your challenges in life. You can't carry it by yourself unless we help each other carry the weights that we have in life. That's what we need. And especially, this is so appropriate in this time of life with everything that's going on in the world right now, is to look beyond the color, the sex, the sexuality, the denomination. Look past all that. If there are agents listening to this that have a question about real estate and they don't have a place to turn, call me, email me. I'm happy to answer questions and help or encourage or inspire or empower or motivate, because we have to do that for each other. Because when I was in the back of that car in that McDonald's parking lot, there were plenty of people along that that path at that time that were doing that for me.
Hmm.
And I'm in a fortunate place now where I'm able to do that for others. And I think we all are. And when you need the help, ask for it. We all need help. And when you're strong enough to give it, help somebody pick up that dumbbell and carry it, because I don't want to ever hear anybody have to tell me that they got a text message on a Saturday morning that somebody took their own life and that they have to go to a funeral service the next day.
Hmm.
But who you were is not who you are. And who I was helped make me who I am today. And I'm excited to see who I'm going to be. And I'm excited to be part of the Fathom family, because these are words that would not be welcome in a lot of venues, or not welcome because they're bad words, but just not welcome because I'm not talking mastermind and rock star. You're all rock stars. Whether you sell another house in your life or not, you're a rock star. Just remember that. So,
John,
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, thank you, and we wish you well with your foundation, and that you would get a lot of business coming into it to be able to fund those things in your community, and like you said, I think it's a good time to really think about these things in our world. So I'll let you go with that. For those of you who are still watching, again, my name is not John Davison. I'm gonna get rid of that title there. But if you haven't checked out Fathom, go over to fathomcareers.com, and you can see right on our homepage kind of the survey of who we are, including our fee structure and the things that we offer to real estate agents. We're a company that tries to do our best to work for you rather than the other way around. So check us out at fathomcareers.com, and I hope you have a good rest of June. I think our next show will be either on June 30th or July 1st. It's Wednesday at 1:30 Central Time, and we'll be having one of our own, DeJane Kerr. She's going to be on the show. So I think it's July 1st. So we're looking forward to her. She does a lot with training. She's a very involved agent in her community and in her real estate community around her. So lots of experience and good stuff coming from her. So excited for that interview. So that'll be, if I don't have my date wrong, July 1st, 1:30 Central Time. We'll see you then.